basically like the kind of where I'm at is just there's a whole culture of people that, you know, don't make it in the art world, but they're still artists.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of like what I'm interested in. And I think that's a pretty big community. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's a ton of people who, you know, aren't like will still make things and may make things forever and will never have like quote unquote made it.
Yeah.
And then there's also people who have like had really big shows and stuff like that where they did, you know, they had a big show and maybe they still make work and maybe they're still selling work, but it's just like at the scale that's still like under, you know, they're not at like Gagosian or whatever. Yeah.
And I think that there's definitely, well, I mean, just working class artists, you know, is what's interesting to me, because it's like it is that thing where it's not necessarily a choice for a lot of people. Like the idea that you have to kind of do this, even though it's not necessarily making you bigger. But like, I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I find interesting is just like how shockingly easy it is to build a relationship with a space like Montevista. You know, which, having done it myself, and then having talked to a lot of people who were just like, oh yeah, like, you know, I just went.
Right. I think, I mean, there's sort of like this interesting thing that I've seen over time, just in the art world in Austin and the art world here, is you kind of like artists themselves will think there's a barrier to entry for certain, and there definitely hugely is a barrier to entry for a lot of places. But there's all these other places where there is a very small or no essentially barrier to entry. Or if you just want to, I mean, like the way at Montevista, let's see, in 2019 was the first year we did the open call, and we, you know, curated a showdown from that. And that's how we met Christine Atkinson, who's a member now. And we met her because I mean, we curated her piece into the show and we all really liked the piece, but she came to the opening and she brought wine and we didn't ask her.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, like, that's not like we let her in Montevista because she brought wine. I mean, that's.
No.
But I mean, it was also 2 years, 3 years, 2, 3, 4 maybe years later that she became a member of Montevista. But we all remembered her because we were like, you were so friendly and you really wanted to like help.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes there's a lot of places and spaces that need people who will help.
Yeah.
And are interested in helping and are not like going to be, you know, hoarders of whatever it is they know.
And that is an interesting thing, because there is a, because I know that when I first moved to LA, it was during the economic downturn, the last one. and I did a lot of free work for people, but for companies, and those relationships never really worked out because they felt like some level of guilt, you know, whereas in this space, like free work is everyone's doing it, right? Like there's no hierarchy where some person is making money at Montevista and everybody else is just serving to help that person, right?
Right. And so I think that's like, you know, the nature of these
it's
types.
It's a collaborative volunteer effort as opposed to like an exploitative volunteer effort.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's you know, that's like, and that's one of the lovely things about the art world is that there is all these places where and even if you're a person, you're like, I don't know what I have to offer. I mean, a lot of times people just need like humans to exist and like to be there.
Yeah.
Or, you know, seeing somebody, like if you're a person that works in a space or helps run a space and you start seeing someone that comes to all your openings and does try to, I mean, they don't have to come to all of them, but comes to openings frequently and they like hang around and like try to say hello and like be interested. And also just people coming in and not being like, I want something from you. Instead being like, hey, how can I help, or how can I be a part of this thing? And I think
what it is that there's definitely a vibe at Montevista, and if you come in and you like, which is how I feel like I got in, is if you come in and you are contributing to the vibe, while also receiving something from it, like I think Because I remember I literally told Rakim one time, we play video games every now and then, like, you know, once every year sometimes, but we'll get together. I mean, we haven't done it in a while, but and I remember when I got in, I was like, oh, dude, I was going to ask you how to get into Montevista, but I never got around to it. And I think that like, I mean, because I definitely was there with intention and curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And there came a time where I was like, well, I can't just interview all of Montevista. It's not a Montevista podcast.
Right.
You know, so I had to make an effort to have Kellen and then have Rakim, and slowly everybody got on. But like, you know, but yeah, so it's interesting. I talked to Molly a little bit about this as well. And, because I've known Molly for like 7 years now.
Mm-hmm.
We just realized it during the interview, and it was like it was cool. But yeah, like one of the things that is, you go to like spaces like Night Gallery and all of those, and those are nice spaces. They have great work. That there's nothing against them, but a lot of the people that are networking in there that I realized at one point was just like people that know each other from work, right? They're adjuncts or whatever. And a lot of the community seems inaccessible because people kind of know each other from things like that, right? So it is really interesting, I guess, the idea of seeking out spaces, you know, because like from day one, you and Carl, like no one was ever like, oh, this is like a clique that like you're not welcome into until you're in. Like I never felt like that. Well, I was just like, one day I was in.
Yeah, well, I think that I think that, you know, you can't, like, you have to just find a place. You have to find a place where people are nice to you.
Yeah.
I mean, and you will go, like, if you go to enough stuff and you're out and around enough, you'll find, like, that's how, Katya Uvitsky, who, I'm sorry, Katya, I pronounced your last name wrong. I know I did. But she, so her and her husband, Sean Noyce, they run a place called Montevista Projects in Hollywood, and then she also is a member of TSA. But I met her because I went to see a show at Noisky, and she was gallery sitting, and we just started chatting, and I was like, showed her my work, and we talked for like like half an hour or something.
No.
We'd never met before, but she was just really nice and actually interested, and I was like, oh, like we're cool, you know. She was interested and engaged, and I think that if you can, I mean, it's sort of like, I guess, like dating or whatever, where you're like, is this person interested in me? And also sometimes it does take a few times too, where you maybe meet somebody and they're like, whatever, and then you see them at something later or in a different social situation.
Yeah.
So I think that's, like you were saying, with some places where it's more inaccessible because people know each other because of their jobs or whatever. You know, you'll get involved in one thing and that'll tie to another thing. And then eventually, you know, you kind of, all these threads start getting tied together.
Yeah, and it is interesting to think about that, because that is distinctly an MFA grad scene, right? The adjunct hustle and all of those things. And it is, it's a different kind of, like, they're very, I mean, it sounds dumb to say, but they're just very academic about art, you know? and that's fine. That's fine. You know, I definitely don't begrudge anybody that comes on the show, because I love that shit too, right? And wants to talk about that. But I do feel like that is part of the intimidation, right? Like if you, like, I mean, I can hang, but when I wasn't where I'm at now, I didn't feel like I could. I was very self-conscious about MFA and all of that, not having one. In fact, it wasn't until like recently that it was Jamie. So it was definitely after 2016 that Jamie that convinced me that I didn't need to go.
Yeah.
You know,
well, we're in the club, the no MFA club.
No, so. I know, but I didn't know you then, you know, when I was stressing all of, or maybe I knew you, but I didn't know that about you. But but that's an example right there. Like someone would look at you and maybe not know that you have a BFA and just assume that you do because of where you are at. You are somewhat, I don't know if Track 16 officially, like, are you represented by Track 16? So such a loose relationship. It's
very loose. I mean, so like Sean shows my work. I'm on the list of artists that they show, but they don't like, they don't like officially represent people as far as, you know, like.
That's fair enough. I mean, I don't know how these fucking things work anyway.
Like that's
that's the art world that I'm not part of. but yeah, I mean, and then the other thing is like I feel like in that realm, like when you're going into school, there's just this idea of one of the things that the podcast has been good to me in learning is this idea that like people recognize effort, you know, like most people probably don't listen to this show that still show me like deference because I do it, you know, not because they're afraid that I'm going to talk shit about them or anything like that, or not because they even want to be on the show because they don't listen, but just because it's like, oh, this is a person that's out here hustling. And I think that when people see that, like that goes a long way. You know, I mean, that's probably why I got in.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I think people want to see that. I also just feel like there's this whole, I mean, which is totally fine, and people can be like this if they want, but there's this whole thing in the art world about like serious, like being serious. And like you said, with like the academic talk and everything. And okay, like there is obviously more than two ways to look at every piece of art, but you can look at it in this like super academic way where you really like, you know, like analyze it and talk about all the like cultural implications and how the society that it came out of and blah, 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 blah. And then you can just be like, also, I covered a chair in stuffed animal fur.
Yeah.
That's it. Like really, it's like there is this base level of, you know, I cut up 800 pieces of paper, but then you could also be like, these 800 pieces of paper like have all this blah, blah, blah meaning.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to like live in the world where both of these things, like the simplest and silliest explanation exists in context with the academic, like very deep explanation. Those two things just are both alive at the same time. And I think I hate it when I go to a show. It's like, I'm literally making this up. I did not see this. So if it happened, sorry, everyone. But you see like, I don't know, something that looks like a human finger hanging out of a wall. And it's the only piece in the gallery. It's just a finger coming out of the wall. And you're like,
that's just kind of dope though.
I mean, but you could be like, finger.
Yeah.
But then you like pick up the artist or the paperwork in the gallery. And it's like some long, heady statement about like all the meanings of, and no one ever just says a sentence like, there's a finger sticking out of the wall.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that what you've done or the gallery or the artist they all know.
Yeah.
There's a finger hanging out of the wall. Funny, hilarious. What is that? It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. But then they're like they're trying to, they want you to ignore that so you can like focus on this like hyper academia situation.